This digital guide is meant to be used as a template for any grade level of the StudySync program in any story, any unit that you're working on. So the first thing you're going to want to do is save a copy and change the name depending on the story that you're doing. Next, I do have some written directions, but it's easier if you follow along with me as I'm going through this video. You also want to have the lesson plan open from StudySync for the specific story that you're doing and follow along with me, but I can't show you that on the screen because of copyright reasons. So every single slide on this guide can be edited however you would like. You can change the color, you can change the words, you can add or delete any of the slides that you need to as you're going through this guide. And it's really just meant, first of all, to be a guide for you as the teacher to keep you on track, but then also it's a nice guide for your students to follow along because sometimes it can get overwhelming. So generally what I'll do is put the title of the work and then I will add a picture and the author's name. And again, you can click, drag, add, delete any of these things. And I also included some extra information of things that I like in my classroom because I figured why not? If it's something you like, you can use, and if not, you can just simply delete. So the next thing I'm going to do is just scroll through the different slides that I have available for you, and literally all I do when I'm creating this guide for each unit is copy and paste straight out of the lesson plan. So if you open up a lesson plan and follow along with me, you're going to see that this corresponds exactly with most of them, and I included everything that you could use so that if you want to use it you can, but if not you can just delete it. The first thing I'll do is go into the lesson plan and I will copy and paste the objectives and then also the standards for the students so that they know from the beginning what we're doing. And then I go through again and copy and paste the title of the unit and also what section it is that we're doing, whether it's a first read, a skill, or a close read. Some parts of the lesson plan give you the ability to assess their prior knowledge, and this is where I will copy and paste the questions and then give them time in class to either respond in small groups, individually, or sometimes we'll do this together as well. And then this just takes them through, during a first read, here's what we're going to be doing. We make predictions about vocabulary, we break down parts of the text, and then we're going to be annotating. Also during the first read, they ask you as the teacher to focus on a reading strategy, and I like to copy and paste a good image here or a definition depending on the reading strategy that we're doing, whether it be visualizing or annotating or something like that. Also, with all of our first reads, we have our students annotate everything and we color code it as well because it makes it easier when we're walking around to double check their work and what they're doing. So for annotations, we always do vocab in blue, questions in red, and key points in yellow. And then I do also, because I teach middle school and have taught high school before, like to give them a specific amount that they need to do. So they will, for example, have to answer or ask 2 questions throughout. And also, again, I like to justify what we're doing and why we're doing it throughout, just in case you ever get asked that, why do we have to do this question? As far as the comprehension questions go, I included this slide because it's up to you whether or not you want to assign those to your students. I usually do, and I like to put this slide in here just as a reminder to myself that they need to either work on this at the end of class when they're finished with their first read annotations, or they need to do this for homework. So again, if homework is something you assign, you can change this as needed or you can leave it. Then it goes through the option of including small group discussion in the lesson plan. And again, the questions you can just copy and paste directly from the lesson plan and delete any of these columns or rows as needed. And I like to remind them of what we do during collaborative discussions as well. If you do choose to do the Sync TV video, there is this option of including the time that you should pause during the video and what you're supposed to discuss to have up on the board. And then also sometimes I just like to ask them to rate this video on a scale of 1 to 10 or rate this conversation that we've had on a scale of 1 to 10. And also I should mention that at the bottom of the slides presentation, there's directions for the teacher as well, which should be deleted before you assign it in Google Classroom. When I split them into collaborative discussions, Study Sync in the lesson plan gives you the option of having 2 different topics to discuss. So I will assign them a number. Really simply, either just count off by 1s or 2s or do birthday months, January through June, and then split them into 2 separate groups. And then I assign them the think questions. You can adjust this depending on how many there are for that unit, how many you want them to do, and then I always include that if they don't finish their homework. And also we use the acronym of the RACE strategy so that they know during each of those think questions they're restating, answering, citing using textual evidence, and explaining their answer. The next set of slides, 16 through 21, are based around using a skill. So this is something that may need to be completely eliminated if you're not covering that skill for the unit, or doubled if there are several skills or a couple skills in the Study Sync unit. And again, I just go through, copy and paste and change whatever that skill is, copy and paste the objectives and the standards from the lesson plan, and then I just remind them, this is what we do during a skill, this is the purpose of it, you're going to define it, you're going to see how a great reader would model this, and then they will be given their chance, or the your turn section. And each one of these are described on each of the following slides as well. I also included a section for the close read, and this is probably the one that may need to be the most heavily modified depending on what the prompt is. Again, objectives and standards that can be copy and pasted. We like to bring their vocabulary back in at this point at the beginning of the close read. So what I have them do is I will have them copy and paste the vocabulary words in this first column. Then I will have them copy and paste the actual dictionary definition, and they can either compare it to their own or switch Chromebooks with someone, and they have to switch back into their Study Sync program and see when they originally did that vocabulary annotation, how they did on it. And I have them rate that on a 10 scale. So if they switch Chromebooks with someone, they will say, you're really close, I give you a 9 or a 10, and if they're way off, maybe they'll give them a 2 or a 3 or a 0 if it was not even close to the actual dictionary definition. So it's really just making them accountable for double checking their vocabulary. Lastly, I go through and copy and paste the close read prompt. I just give them an idea, just some basic skills for writing extended response questions. And then as we go through skill focused questions and annotate these either as a class or individually, at this point I'm reminded that we need to be working on those skill focused questions. It did also include just some rules of formal writing that I've used and adapted over the years for any essay or any extended response question. And then once they're finished, I like to tell my kids, make sure you go back through, use those transitions, edit, and then there's also some other quick tips in there. Now, as far as the close read goes, at this point, you have the option of just giving them the prompt and having them work on it, or you can break it down further. And I included this outline as well for a close read essay because it may need to change or be altered depending on what the actual prompt is asking of them. But I wanted to give you an example of, at this point, I would include a slide that had the prompt on it. And then I would go through and help them break down, okay, on the intro, this is what we're going to be doing. And even if this is a paragraph or sometimes it's a couple sentences, it's just a nice reminder of what needs to be included in an introduction, whether it's a paragraph or a part of the first paragraph. And then this main point slide is really what's going to have to be changed or altered depending on the specific prompt that you're working on in the close read of Study Sync. And then the conclusion's pretty basic, just what they need to do, rephrasing their thesis and including that concluding thought as well. If you have any questions, please email me, staygoldshell@gmail.com, message me anytime and I will help you out. And then also follow me on Instagram and Pinterest so you can see my updated new activities.